Good afternoon. It's time to call to order the May 16, 2017 meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the April 18, 2017 Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next on the agenda is to ratify the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust claims. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And it is ratified. Next are items that need individual consideration. Eric Winger is going to be performing for a while, so come forward, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have 6 items on your agenda. I'm happy to, they're all Project 180 related, so I can do them individually one at a time, I assume. Would you like to see them all at once?
Let's do them one at a time, because we have to vote on them one at a time, do we not?
Okay.
So,
let's talk about item A. Item A is Change Order 5, Amendment Number 2, and also the final acceptance of Package 7A. So 7A was the work that was predominantly on Kerr, also on Harvey. This change order and amendment total is $416,173. Quite large, but it does wrap up all of the work. And some of the challenges that we had, there were final quantities that are in this, so anything was on the final calculations. But the 2 areas that had the most significant cost, there was a realignment of a water line, and there was extensive work in the Kerr-Hudson intersection. I know it's hard to remember today because we finished that work some time ago, but it was a very complicated intersection at Hudson and Kerr that required a lot of extra attention, materials, and some coordination. SRB was our engineer, and Rudy Construction was our contractor, and the total cost was $5.6 million.
any comments or questions from the trustees? We have a motion to approve. And a second. Please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next item.
Item B is Change Order 5, Amendment 3, and final acceptance of Package 7B. So this was work that was predominantly on Park Avenue from Hudson to Broadway. It's $119,686. It, too, includes final quantities that were generated on the totals. But the biggest cost items in this change order and amendment were basement modifications that had to do with waterproofing, several of the basements that were exposed during construction. Again, SRB was the engineer of record, Rudy was the contractor, and the total cost was $7.4 million.
We have a motion to approve. Have a second. Any comments or questions? Please cast your votes. And it's approved. Item C.
So item C is a current construction project. This is Amendment 2, Change Order 3 for Package 6B. This is the work that's currently underway on Gaylord from Reno to Sheridan. Total cost is $314,870. Work is proceeding well. It was a challenging section. One of the largest cost items that's in this change order amendment was some sanitary sewer work. The estimate was that we would be able to do about half the costs of this change order, but the trench had to become 12 feet wide and 20 feet deep for us to work on. So it doubled most of the quantities just for the sewer line by itself. With the widened trench and the deeper trench, we had additional protection measures that we had to do. We've kept it open to traffic, so also the additional traffic control led to some of the increase in costs. Tetra Tech is our engineer. ATEC is our paving contractor. Right now, they're at a point where they're setting curbs, so all of the utility work is complete, and we're actually in the final construction stages going through the summer, anticipating an August completion.
So this one is just going well, whereas the first 2 are done.
The first 2 are done, and this one will be done end of summer, so we're getting close.
Yes, ma'am.
We seem to be hitting a lot of these additional costs. Why don't we factor those factors in before we start?
So, we do the most in-depth surveys that are available, and we use OKC to help locate a lot of those utilities. What we found is, especially in our downtown areas, that there's not a lot of records of these older water and sewer lines. And so until we actually get the earth opened, and actually when we get down and find, we don't know what the actual condition, the actual depths, and some of the circumstances are. So I'm not sure that there is a lot better way for us to do that. We've taken on a really big challenge in 180, where it's not just taking new pavement, new lights, and new benches. We're removing all those utilities. This was also coordinated with the streetcar, so we made sure that they were out of the way of the streetcar work that's there. Just a really challenging and difficult project, and so it came with some greater risk.
Okay. Well, and the other thing I just point out is for each project, we have a project contingency, And then for the overall program, we have a contingency. So we do try to set aside some money for each project just in case we run into unexpected things.
So we generally have budgeted through each of the projects about 10% of the total budgeted cost. So it's not affected the program, and one individual project doesn't affect another. We've kept it localized to the project that's being constructed.
And the TIF committee themselves have looked at all these before we get them, correct? So this is not the first time some group has seen the fact that we needed more money for a particular project.
So I would say every change order amendment that we've had to increase the contract has come before the trust and goes eventually to the council. The DIC sees these as well, and staff has reviewed them with the engineer and also the contractor.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to move the item.
We have a motion? And a second? Any further questions or comments? Please cast your votes. And it is so done. Next item.
So the next item is an amendment number 4, but this is actually to an engineering contract. And so the engineer was Smith Roberts Ballerschweiler, SRB. And as we finished Project 180 and we're getting ready to do what's under bid now, package number 8, this is in the amendment that allowed the design of package 8 to occur with an existing contract. So we didn't have to go back out and hire a new engineer. We had an existing engineer do the design of package 8. The amendment amount is $356,234, and it's going to be covering the work that we've previously described on Broadway, Main, and Kerr at an estimated construction cost of $2.5 million. We're expecting to receive those bids in just about 2 weeks.
We have a motion. A second. Comments or questions? Please cast your votes. And it is so approved. Next item.
The fifth item on the agenda, item 4E, is amendment number 5 to the contract for landscape architecture. This is with Howard Fairbairn Site Design. It's for $52,570. And it covers actually several packages. And so Howard Fairbairn Site Design actually was the landscape architect of record that worked with the individual engineers, making sure that the landscaping was consistent across packages. And so this is an amendment that covers the splitting of package 7 into 2 individual packages. We bid them as 7A, 7B. It covers new work that was included in package 6B and 7A that included waterproofing, some street median changes, and also some revised electrical connections as we were in construction.
And this is a fee increase of, what,
$52,570. And it covered 3 different projects that they were working on.
Do you have a question, Chairman? On the material provided in the packet, Eric, it indicates the landscape architectural fee from the original contract and then an estimated construction cost. Can you help me understand the estimated construction cost of $4 million as it relates to this?
So I believe it's for several of the packages, but let me get a little bit of guidance. You can give me just one moment.
Thank you. Right, which is what alarmed me, because it wouldn't be 50% of the construction.
Yes, the $4 million, as I mentioned, this particular consultant worked on all of the packages, and so the $4 million is the estimated value of the work for the site landscaping packages over multiple construction packages. So it wasn't just one project, but they've worked on all 8. So this is the estimated total value of the work that they designed to.
Okay, make sure I can peel that a little bit.
Okay.
So the original contract let for the services of nearly $1.8 million was for recommendations or design services that led to $4 million in expenditures on a multitude of the project?
We believe so, but I would say that there was a lot more coordination, not just the construction. So Scott Howard, who's actually been on site for a number of the projects and does a lot of the field engineering as well, it includes that part of his scope on all of these original contract and amendments. He worked with all the different engineers individually, creating specifications and plans. I believe this is, again, an estimated number. We probably could relook at this, and if we're looking at the fee compared to the total construction cost, it's probably not a good comparison on page 2. If we looked at the total packages, I would tell you that if you included all of the package totals, I mean, we're near $180 million.
Right, and so thank you for that, because I agree with that. The city's expenses associated with the landscape architecture would feel proportional to the overall project. But seeing it compared to a $4 million construction cost looks obviously way skewed.
I think so too, and I think that's maybe where it looks, where this may be just the landscaping components only, but it may not be all of the other hardware and things that he may be consulted on as a part of benches, pavers, lighting, all the other packages as well.
Well, let me also share a compliment to you and your team and the architect for the role that's been played, because I think the consistency throughout the area is important, and it's evidence in your execution, and it's looking good. But
Thank you.
the numbers scared me, that we would have an architecture fee at 50% of any contract. And then I guess my last question would be, because we're dealing with 1.8 and now we're nearly 3 million. There's been changes, obviously, the package split on 7A and B that you described, just to name a few.
And we've added a whole new package 8. I mean, so we continued to finish up the expenditure of the available funding, and this firm has been through since day one.
So that always raises concern for me that the award would not have gone to someone else, knowing what we know today. And then secondly, does this Amendment 5 post-date any of the work or invoices outstanding from the firm?
So to answer the first question, I would say that's something that always comes into consideration if we've changed the scope of work and should we have advertised the project differently. So I would tell you that the scope of work hasn't changed. We probably expanded the work area and we've changed the locations of the work, but we've always been having this consultant design Project 180 specifically to the standards that we've all come to know very well. As for expenditures to date, it's very possible that they may have done some work at risk, and there may be some pending payments based on this amendment. We have found that on certain projects where we've had to proceed with work and the consulting and contracting communities have proceeded at limited risk. But I wouldn't know what that amount is. I mean, we haven't received a bill yet for completed work that might be related to this amendment.
Okay, thank you. I know that's naturally how these sometimes unfold. If that were the case, is the Municipal Counselor's Office recommending approval of the amendment today?
We have recommended approval.
No further questions. Thank you.
Question for procedure. If in any item, just use this as an example, one or more of the trustees continue to have questions on it, rather than approve the item, we can vote for a deferral, can we not?
Yeah, you can certainly defer it.
We can defer it. So we have that option. Are you comfortable with it? Or would you like some more information, Jim?
Well, I'm certainly comfortable with the explanation. The document, I think, made the wrong reference point to the fee teed off of a construction number. Seeing a series of amendments to a contract that's nearly 50% of the original contract is always of concern to me when it comes to public money. But if the Municipal Counselor's Office is comfortable with the way this has progressed and the recommendation, then my questions have been answered. But if there's a desire that we'd like to defer it, I can certainly support that too.
Okay, what's the desire there? Do we have a motion to approve? We have a motion?
Second.
Second. Any further questions? Please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next up, final specifications for the traffic signal and lighting installation and repair project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our final afternoon item. It's 4F. It's the specs for the traffic signal and lighting installation repairs. So these are the Project 180 style fixtures. It includes the traffic signals, the control cabinets, the street lights. We simply have used the same contract for the last 4 years, and it's time for us to rebid that work. And so this is a new set of plans and specifications that will go out for rebid and repricing for us to use for any future Project 180. It's also going to allow us to use it outside of Project 180 should there be other than 180 funds in the downtown area that wish to use the same amenities. So we're actually starting to see that now as well, where if you look around, say, the new police headquarters or the new municipal courts building, they, as a part of those projects, are now installing similar Project 180 features, even though they're not in the Project 180 specific area.
We have a motion? We have a second? Your question? Yes, ma'am.
Eric, this isn't totally relevant to this, but it is concerning all of our signage. Have we evaluated what we will need from a signage and traffic signal standpoint for driverless cars going forward? And are we appropriating dollars that will comply in the future, or are we going to have to totally come up with new funds?
You know, we're starting to monitor the progress of driverless cars, and 3M, for example, has been into city offices, 3M products that actually make a lot of the vinyl application signage that gets applied to the metal, to show us some of the new products that they're starting to look at. I would tell you that we haven't presented with a standard yet of what's going to be the new standard for signage for a driverless community. I would say that we would be as prepared as any municipality to take on that as it approached. We do a lot of our signage in-house. We do contract a lot of signage, so we do have the capability to adapt. So if the standard gets established and we decide that Oklahoma City is going to be a driverless community or a driverless car community, so we could do that in the future. Right now, I would say that we've not made any changes. The Project 180 signs are slightly different than our normal street signs because they're using white backgrounds with black letters. They're also slightly different font. Contractors are doing those, but we have the ability to also do that in-house as well.
Thank you.
We had a motion and a second, did we not? Yes, we did. Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And it is so done. Thank you, Eric. Next up, resolution approving extension and modification of our Public Property Authority bond anticipation note.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and trustees. Item G is an extension of the original, actually 2004 bond anticipation note. Now it was amended to become a 2006 and 2006. And this note has gotten as high as $16 million. But we've been successfully paying it down over each year, and what we're looking to do today is to reduce the overall borrowing capacity from $4.5 to $3.5 million. We plan on paying $1 million down next month, so we'll only have outstanding balance of about $2.6 million. Our hope is to pay it off in the next 2 years, and we'll extend the terms out to June 30 of 2018. And with that, it'll be effective July 1. That will require an additional vote by the City Council, and we plan on doing that in the next weeks, in the coming weeks.
Questions or comments from the trustees?
I'd like to move the item, or second? I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roth and a second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And the resolution is approved. Next resolution up, another.
Yes, sir. This seeks to extend the 2014 line of credit for TIF District Number 2 an additional 9 months to March 31st, 2018. We are contemplating doing a bond authorization in the next fiscal year to essentially take this debt out along with some existing debt and also to obtain some additional money for projects. And this will, the term that still stays at $25 million. We have an outstanding balance of around $13 million to date. And again, like I said, it'll take it out to March 31st of 2018. And it'll be effective July 1 of 2017.
Questions or comments from the trustees? We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next up, we have a very exciting item on our agenda.
Yes. On item I, this is to approve the assignment of our agreement that relates to the outlet mall here in Oklahoma City. At the end of April, a group consisting of the Tor Group and Segerman acquired the property. And we have with us today Mitchell Brown, David Hinkle, and Lisa Wagner from the Tor Group, which will be managing the property. And I believe Mitchell has a presentation that he would like to provide to you. So, actually, it will be Lisa Hinkle. Or Lisa Wagner, I'll get it right.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I appreciate having the opportunity to introduce you to our team and also to us a little bit of our plans. Are you going to work the... Okay, so we'll see if I can not mess up the technology. Just to introduce TORG, the Outlet Resource Group. We are a group that was formed several years ago, but we have decades of history in this industry, in the outlet industry. We're specific to the outlet industry. That's all we do. Our principals have opened 65-plus centers around the world in that time period, and we've touched many more centers by virtue of leasing, marketing, consultation. So we have very deep roots in the outlet industry. Scary number, 250 years collectively. We always say we started really young. Sometimes I feel that 250 is all me. But Singerman is our partner. They've executed about $1.5 billion in investment over their duration, but a small part of that relatively in outlets, although they're very committed to doing more. So they have deep expertise as well. Our leasing team has been successful in leasing over 27 million feet of outlet retail in their collective careers, so lots of experience. And we have a strong history in marketing and operations. We're different from a lot of other groups out there. For one thing, we operate in a very hands-on manner. You will see a lot of us if you come out to the center. We'll be here quite a lot. We believe in very much highlighting the local market that we're in, and the marketing we do will be specific to this center. It will not be a national program that just changes the name. We think it's important to be reflective of the community, and we've spent a lot of time trying to get to know the community, and that will be an ongoing effort. The other thing that makes us different, I think, is that we try and back up all of our marketing ideas with real strategy, and we are very aggressive in adopting new media and new approaches, and we see these centers for what they are, which are an attraction for a wide, far-flung market, and that's really our expertise. Now a little bit about the industry. Most people think the outlet industry is actually a lot bigger than it is. It's only about 200 centers. And this is the latest data from our industry organization, ICSC, International Council of Shopping Centers. And the collective square footage is just under 80 million square feet among all those 200 centers in the U.S. The average size a little under 400,000 feet, so that makes our center here in Oklahoma City about the average. We're a little shy of that number, but not quite. And an interesting thing, which I know you all are aware of, and you obviously thought about it in creating this structure here, is that our market area is much wider than any type of shopping center. And if you look at the comparisons with the other types of centers up there, neighborhood centers which draw from only 3 miles, we average around 60-plus miles, a little 62 miles is for the national average. And in this center, we've seen data that shows that it's really more like 250 miles. So because we're the only center in the state, and we foresee that we will always be, in our lifetimes, the only center, we know that we have an opportunity to dominate the state and go beyond into the neighboring states of Arkansas, Kansas, and Missouri. So we're very comfortable with that strategy. That's a comfortable market area for us. As an industry, we way outpunch our weight class. We only account for about 1% of total square footage, so that 80 million in square footage of the industry on total is only about 1%, but our visit share, the percentage of people visiting, is almost 9.5%. So we get a lot more visits and a lot more traffic than our size would indicate as a center or as an industry. And then when it comes to real purchases, that's where the rubber hits the road. And we dominate in apparel, accessories, and shoes. That's really the sweet spot for the outlet industry. And when it comes to where people are actually spending their money, when you look at all of brick and mortar retail that's not outlet, it's about 46%. We are 26%. So again, little old 1% outlet centers, but we're getting 26% of the spend. And that's keeping pace with the online category at 28%. So every year that purple section grows, but so does our little rust-colored wedge. So we are keeping pace, unfortunately at the expense of the rest of brick and mortar. But outlets are the only kind of retail customers tell us is still fun, and our goal is to keep it fun and rewarding and make it even more so. So now specific to Oklahoma City, as I said, we've been digging in here. We always say we are in this market because we want to be. We really pursued this acquisition hard, and it was about a year in the making. So we've been here quite a lot in stealth. You just didn't know it, but we were around this market. And we are very, very excited about it, and some of you we've met individually and we've expressed that to you, but we really are. We think that it's a very strong center, make no mistake. It's a very good performer, but we feel that in this market, there's such an opportunity to take it to the next level and make it really one of the top performing centers. It's, as I said, the only center in the state. We do not foresee that the rumored Tulsa centers will ever happen. The retail industry, even though outlets are very strong, there is a predisposition toward not cannibalizing, and the smaller markets are having a hard time getting leased. So I think that we are very comfortable in saying this is the center for Oklahoma. It is, as I said, a very strong center. We think there's great upside potential. You've got some terrific brands out there, and I don't know if any of you have been out in the last 2 weeks, but we opened Bath & Body Works, and it is a beautiful store. That's a picture of one section of it. And in their first weekend, they outperformed their projections by over 18%. So they came out of the box strong, and we're hoping that they're really going to have a great year there, and their numbers will probably approach about $700 a square foot, which is terrific. So I encourage you all to go check it out. This market, I don't need to tell you, it's really solid. It's got terrific population, demographics, growth. Your population is well employed, well educated, tiny level of unemployment, all the factors we look for. Also, you have good levels of disposable income. So all the boxes that we like to check as an industry and that our tenants look at as indicators, they're all checked here. So we feel really excited about that. And then, not to sound like we're just making a compliment, but the city has been tremendously forward-thinking, and that is an important factor, not just for a landlord, but to be able to assure tenants that they will have a smooth process in opening, smooth process in all of their doing of business here. That's very positive. So on the opportunity side, just to kind of lay it out into some quick bullet points, we feel that if we can make that already very strong shopping experience even nicer for the customer, that they will stay longer, they will come from farther, and it will become, what we'd like to see is that it ends up in the top 10 of things to do in Oklahoma City, so that when people are making a plan for a trip here, that's one of the top things they want to do. And it becomes a tool for your visitor and convention folks to be able to use to attract people to come to Oklahoma City. So we know the first things are first, and we have to improve the housekeeping. They have been operating at a skeleton staff over there, and so we're already making additions, and we are they are probably power washing as we speak right now. There's a lot of cleaning and fixing up being done. And then plans are being made for significant aesthetic improvements. I'd like to say in a year from now, you won't recognize the place. It's going to be dramatically different. And I'll show you some little bit of a hint of some ideas on how that could turn out. We feel there's some untapped marketing opportunity here, and we have devoted a very significant budget in our financial projections to support not only the capital improvements to aesthetically change and modify the center, but also to enhance the marketing. We will be casting a wide net and absolutely marketing into Tulsa, Springfield, Kansas City, Wichita, all western Arkansas, all those markets, which may or may not have been getting adequate attention to date. We, as I said, will be very specific to this market. We've had our creative team here digging in, trying to, just really identify the key drivers of what's going to make this center the most relevant to the local customer. We, you will see a very specific program, not a, kind of a national thing that's just got the name changed. Obviously, part of our goal is to present the center to key brands. It's very well occupied. There's very little vacancy, but there are a few vacant spots. And with all the dynamics in retail, it is natural that we'll have some attrition. And we probably will want some brands to leave if they're not ideal performers. So our job is to continually be mining for new brands that will add new and fun elements to the center. And we are going into, on Saturday, our major industry convention, and we'll be introducing this. And we're excited that we'll be launching the new brand identity on Monday, and the mayor is actually helping with that effort, and we'll be on Facebook Live. So it'll be exciting and a big unveiling. And we know that will get a lot of attention in our industry, and I think it will draw a lot of people to pay attention to the center, which they may not have been focused on of late. We've met with the Chamber, we've met with the CVB, and it is our goal to be their new BFF. We are going to be partnering with them as much as possible to help promote Oklahoma City as a destination. We've got the International Powwow IPW conference coming up in June, happens to be in Washington, D.C., where I'm from, but we'll be having meetings and promoting the center and being very forefront in attracting tourists and groups to come here. And that relaunch and the excitement associated with that, we are planning for, we'll be rolling it out as we are doing the modifications, the painting, all these elements, lots of work to be done. And then the kind of grand reopening is targeted for the first week in November, launching us obviously into our holiday key selling period. So that is the goal. The name, I can't tell you yet. That would take away the surprise. So that's going to be on Monday at 3:30 local time on Facebook Live on the TORG Facebook page. You can tune in and see it all unfold. So we'll be renaming and rebranding. It's required by the seller, but we would do it anyway. It's something we want to do. We've put a lot of time and thought and research into the name, and I think you'll like it. Pretty confident. Can you go back to that? Sorry. And then it's obviously also a way to invite customers to come back and check the place out. You reintroduce it, get people excited. We'll be teasing the name change over the course of the summer and getting it out there in bits and pieces and kind of engaging with customers in social media and so forth, and I think get them pretty excited about it. So now you can go, sorry. And then aesthetically, these are just some first looks. The idea is, frankly, the buildings are well laid out and the circulation of the center is pretty good, but it doesn't look that pretty. We don't think that aesthetically it's what it should be. We know the landscaping is woefully inadequate and looks a little tired. So we'll be really making improvements to the look of it and let the brands be the star. The center will be neutralized a little bit, I could say, as far as color palette. There's about 38 colors out there now. It's going to go down to fewer than a handful, and let the brands be the star. We'll be improving the way signing and entrance features, because right now, I think when you go there, you don't really know where to go in. It's not clear where's the entry. Am I sneaking in a side door? I don't really know. We'll be creating entryways to welcome people and make it clear this is where you come in, and just improving the circulation around so that if you're standing in front of Nike, you can figure out where Polo might be and where Under Armour might be and so forth. So that's all being planned out right now. And this is a bigger look, and you can see, again, not exact, but the idea is that the building becomes a background for the brands. And for all of you who have mentioned the lavender fences around the service areas, we hate them too. And the idea here is to create potentially, and we're pricing this out, but green walls. We need to screen those areas, but if we can make it really aesthetically creative rather than looking like sort of a garbage area, then we want to do that. So I think it will become really a very pleasant, desirable place to spend time and to circulate around. And that's it. I'm open to questions. Yeah?
Lisa, in your analysis of the prior ownership's data, you said that the trading area was much greater in this mall, 250 square miles, if you will. Could you determine what percentage of those coming from further away were actually spending overnight trips so you could see if they were purchasing the following day?
No, their data was skimpy. It was based on basically all they did was during a very short time period, they evaluated the cell phone pings. So it was basically when people entered the property and they pinged a tower, then the data traced back to their origin. So you could see a heat map, but you couldn't, they weren't interviewing customers, so there was no actual behavioral data behind it. We could just see the heat of the concentrations. Mm-hmm. So we could see, for instance, that Tulsa only contributed, I think, about 10% of the people measured during that particular little slice of time. So we don't really have enough data on that. I think we will be planning to do a study after we get the brand reintroduction done, probably in, don't like to do studies in holiday time necessarily because it kind of twerks the data, but we will figure out when the right time is and get a proper study with deep levels of data.
Well, just a comment. I appreciate your professionalism on the marketing side of it and how you're approaching it.
Thank you.
Much greater than what we were exposed to previously.
I think I'll leave that there. Thank you. Thought I heard a comment. Any other questions?
Any other comments or questions from the trustees? Jim? We have a motion is second. Any comments, questions? Seeing none. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And it is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, if I could just, I need to go back and look at the two lines of credit. We had a late-minute add to the resolutions by the Banks Council, and I did not hand those out, and we need to hand those out. And John Michael Williams, our bond counsel, will explain the differences in what you received on Friday and what you're about to hand out to you.
Good afternoon. John Michael Williams, your bond counsel. With respect to both of these items, item G and H, the Banks Council, that's J.P. Morgan Chase, they desired to conform some language between these two documents, and so that resulted in the addition of some language I'm going to read to you. It's a whole separate section. It's frankly some language we don't rely on. It's language that existed from another time, but in the sake of moving things along, we added it. And in the course of that, there was a need to change a section number. So, with respect to TIF number 4, that's the so-called Dell TIF, on page 4, you'll see new language that's a section 3. And that language that's in the document that's been delivered to you, it says, upon execution of this resolution by OCDT and the bank, the extension and modification of the note and all ratifications, renewals, and extensions provided for by the resolution, including but not limited to the security agreement and the agreement of support, shall be fully effective. And this resolution shall be written evidence of effectuation and approval of the extension and modification of the note. So that's the new language. That's the only change in that resolution. And then the resolution regarding TIF number 2, that resolution, there's just one change. It's on the second to the last page. It happens to be page 4. And there's a reference to the paragraph where J.P. Morgan signs, and instead of saying section 4, it should say section 3, and that's what the document that was delivered to you just says. So I recommend that both of these items be approved again, each as amended and distributed.
Francis, what process do we have to follow here?
You need to rescind the action that was
what I thought.
previously taken, and then need a motion on the new items.
And we need to rescind each
As
item
amended.
by itself.
Yes.
Okay. Let's start off, and I'll entertain a motion to rescind item G. We have a motion to do it, and a second? A second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And item G is rescinded. Now I need a motion, action on item H. We have a motion. Is that okay to do it that way, sir? I was going to get rid of the old ones and then start with the new ones. Thank you. It's a simple mind. Don't confuse me with the facts.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to rescind item H. Please cast your votes. And it is rescinded. Now, I'll entertain a motion on item G to accept item G with the wording as John Michael has read.
To approve.
To approve, yes. We have I think we have a first down here and a second. Any questions or comments? Please cast your votes. And it is so done. No, let me ask you a procedural matter. We're in a part of this presentation here. Do we entertain, this is citizens to be heard comes at the end.
Yes, but the instructions, they do have the opportunity to speak on each item.
Okay. Do you have, sir, a comment on the item that we're about to address?
I know that you get ready to address it for me. I want to talk about the TIF 2 and 4 that you spoke to, just run across, and I didn't get a chance. I'll hit raise my hand if you overlook.
That we're going to consider TIFs 2 and 3 right now.
2 and 4.
A point of order, if I might.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Jim.
Certainly appreciate citizen involvement at any point during the agenda, but I wanted to clarify. Are the comments going to be germane to the agenda item before us? Which
That's
is
what I was
the
trying to ascertain earlier.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I think that's a very good. Is it germane to this particular right here, or are you talking about the TIFs in general?
Yeah, I was talking about, which one are we talking about now?
Item H.
We're talking about TIFs, it happens to be TIF numbers 2 and 4. I'm sorry, we're talking about 2 and 3, but it's essentially TIF 2. It's the downtown TIF. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Washington. This is the first time I've attended this, and I'm going to be doing it more regularly now that I see a couple of friends of mine on it. Number one, I disagree totally with this farce for TIF programs in 2, 3, and 4, because I'm being excluded as a group of people on the northeast side of Oklahoma City. All the money appears to be going downtown to northeast developers, southeast Oklahoma City developers, and they're excluding African-American communities and Hispanic communities who really need some of this TIF money that we're being excluded on. All the TIF money that I see in 2, 3, and 4 TIF programs are earmarked toward big business. Nothing is given back to the African-American community or low business futures. So I, in and of itself, would like more information as well as detail and also reports and findings before I can further discuss whether this needs to be approved or not.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move back now. Where are we in our...
We're on H. We need a motion to adopt as amended.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adopt item H as amended. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Please cast your votes. And it is so ordered. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now,
On J.
we're on item J. And who's going to comment on item J?
I
Ms.
am.
Kathy.
I am.
Thank you, ma'am.
The item in your packet this morning is a joint resolution with the City Council to adopt the 2017 General Obligation Limited Tax Bond Program. This is really the first time that we've come to talk to you about what might be included in the upcoming 2017 general obligation bond election that is scheduled to go to the voters in September. If you recall, in 2007, there was an item included on the ballot for economic development that created a $75 million local job creation fund. And really, the creation of this trust was based upon the implementation of that new program by the city. So, as I mentioned, in December of 2011, the voters approved the $75 million general obligation limited tax bond authorization that funded what we've called the strategic investment program. And as a statement of the council's policies and directives, they adopted a resolution to set those out before the election was held, so that we were able to tell the voters exactly how the program would work and that its focus would be on primary job creation. So the signature program of the $75 million gold bond authorization is called the Strategic Investment Program. It's overseen by the Economic Development Trust. The City Council also approves each item after the trust sees it. It was designed to be a deal closing fund, so that it was to be used for companies that were making a decision about whether or not to locate in Oklahoma City versus some other community out of state. And again, its primary function is to support the creation of primary jobs. And primary jobs are jobs that create a good or service that can be sold outside of the community and bring capital and resources back into Oklahoma City. It is not used to support retail or hospitality-based jobs. To date, with the SIP program, we've approved about $63 million in agreements. So we've set aside about 63 of the $75 million towards those companies that you guys have heard about through the last 10 years. We've paid about $45 million to companies so far, and we have an expectation to create over 11,000 jobs through the $63 million that has been allocated. Those jobs were anticipated to create about $682 million in payroll, and we've had over $900 million in capital investment in the community. And the capital investment piece is a very important part of this program if you think about that the bonds are funded through ad valorem revenues, through real estate taxes. So that capital investment becomes a very important consideration when we talk to companies and helps really to almost like generate the revenues that support the bond issue. In 2012, we amended the policy to add several other types of programs that were allowed under the state statutes but weren't really explicitly described in the initial policy that was adopted in 2007. Some of these, these are the infrastructure program, and that was so that we could have the ability to build infrastructure to support job creation projects. The leverage fund program, which is actually a revolving loan program that we have not used, but we have the ability to if we ever need that flexibility. The land assembly program and the emerging technologies program. The land assembly program obviously would be to help us with the acquisition of sites for maybe major manufacturing project or even a large-scale office development. And the emerging technologies program was designed to help small businesses that were investing in some new technology, and we have done one of those through the course of the last 10 years. The policy statement that's in your packet today is intended to restate many of the same objectives that we had from the beginning program. We're not making any major departures in the basic job creation focus of the Gold Bond program. It incorporates the same guiding principles that we've had since 2007, and I know many of those are very important to the trust and to the City Council that talk about accountability and transparency, and that in almost every case are our incentives are pay for performance, and if we have provided infrastructure improvements to help support a project, we've provided clawbacks as a part of the economic development agreement. And I can only think of one example of doing that in the last 10 years. I think one of the really important things about the program is that the guiding principles and the program itself are very clear. Companies can understand them easily, as well as the community and citizens at large. We do emphasize that the jobs are primarily for the creation of new-to-market jobs for the same types of programs that were authorized in the 2012 amendment. One of the additions to, that we would like to propose to the GOLT bond program for 2017 is the inclusion of an affordable housing program. In the bond authorization that's being developed for council consideration, we're asking for $60 million be authorized in GOLT bond proceeds. $50 million of that would be for the primary job creation programs, and $10 million of that would be set aside for the affordable housing program. This would be a new program, but still meets the standards and the requirements in the state statutes for economic development and community development programs that can be created using GOLT bond proceeds. The way the policy is written right now, we would like to try to work on projects that would allocate no more than $1 million each year unless expressly approved by the City Council. I wanted to talk a little bit about why affordable housing is important in Oklahoma City. And, you know, Oklahoma City is a market that is highly affordable. But for more and more people in Oklahoma City, they are becoming cost burdened in their ability to secure good quality housing. So we're seeing a substantial proportion of city residents paying more than 50% of their income towards housing. And low-income renters are especially vulnerable to this situation. Another factor that we think is, that makes it important to consider an affordable housing program is that Oklahoma City is now one of the markets in the country with the fastest rent growth that's being experienced. So we have some of the highest rent growth in the country, and not all of that is just downtown. It's happening throughout the community, even in areas where people are already cost burdened and have struggled with affordability. There's currently more than 45,000 households that are considered cost burdened, and 72% of extremely low income renters are estimated to spend more than 50% of their gross income on rent. And as I mentioned, the increase in rent is not just happening in downtown, but it's happening all across the city, including areas where there's high concentrations of poverty. Some of the things that we struggle with when we talk about affordable housing is how do you distribute affordable housing throughout the community? And a vast majority of the city's available subsidized housing is located in neighborhoods that have the highest poverty, the lowest incomes, the poorest school performance, low access to employment, and economic mobility. So the idea would be to try to identify projects that can begin to help people locate in areas where they do have better schools, better access to employment. The federal funding that is used to create opportunities to fund affordable housing is declining and more cuts are proposed. I'm sure many of you have heard that President Trump has proposed to completely eliminate the Community Development Block Grant Program. Right now, that is the way, and the home program, those are the ways that Oklahoma City helps with affordable housing right now. And meanwhile, the city's public housing stock has a substantial amount of deferred capital needs, and there's no available funds to fix the problem. And there are some existing resources to address the problem, but they are very limited and again are decreasing. For the 2017 gold bond program, we're recommending $10 million for the affordable housing program. And as we move forward towards the election and after the election, staff will develop more specific policy guidelines for the trust and the city council to consider. It's expected that the program would support large-scale affordable or mixed-income housing developments, assist with the location of affordable housing in high-opportunity areas, support housing development serving extremely low-income residents, and help fill the funding gap for supportive or transitional housing, and that's housing for special needs populations, homeless people, veterans. One of the other things that I want to say is that we've been working, my staff and the city planning department staff, with the Oklahoma City County Housing Authority for the past several months to develop a citywide affordable housing strategy and policy that I think would be rolled out as a part of this. I don't want anybody to think that the $10 million affordable housing fund that we're proposing here would be the only resource that we're looking at. I think tax increment financing in the districts in the areas where we have TIF districts provides a really good resource for us to consider in the future. We have used TIF to support affordable housing in the TIF district around the medical center, and there's also some units being proposed in Bricktown. So, you know, it is a tool that we have, so that's one example. There's other city resources, you know, as long as we have community development block grant, as long as we have home funds, those things will be useful. And then the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority has been working to develop affordable housing, mostly single-family homes, for some time now, and we'll continue our efforts to use the resources that we have towards that. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. I welcome any comments or suggestions.
I'm glad to see that we have included affordable housing. That's something that's definitely dear to my heart. You mentioned the Oklahoma County Housing Finance Authority. Have that particular trust been made aware of this proposed program to work with the city?
We've been working with the City County Housing Authority, not the Housing Finance Authority.
Okay, I wanted clarification
and
on.
I don't know if that board has been advised that this is being suggested. I think we wanted to roll it out at the city level first and let you all have the first chance to express an opinion about it. Obviously, it's a city initiative, but we do believe that there are projects where we can work together to really impact more people.
I actually would like to see the policy drafted before the September election.
Well, the policy itself is attached to your agenda item.
The actually program, the criteria. Now, what's the minimum, the maximum, all that information, I would actually like to see that prior to the September election.
That is our plan.
To further the second bullet of having the policy, I think as you mentioned previously, the accountability, transparency, and performance need to be factored into that criteria in order to...
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Those basic guiding principles would not change. And you know, just as a reminder, those are the same principles that we use in our tax increment financing agreements and programs as well.
Now, of the $10 million, how much will be allocated to the City Housing Authority?
I don't think any of it will be allocated specifically to the Housing Authority. I think these funds will be used to support private developments where maybe they might add some resources along with whatever money the city might put forward, but I don't see a direct allocation to the Housing Authority taking place. That isn't how I would foresee these monies being deployed. They're really to complement federal low-income housing tax credit projects to provide a higher level of mixed incomes. this is getting extremely technical, but most LIHTC projects are for people who make 60% of the average median income or less. We would like to have some projects where you could have 30% of AMI, which is where the Housing Authority would come in, 60% of AMI, and then market rate housing, so that it is a true mixed income approach. A really good example of that that's being implemented today in Ward 7 is the developments around Page Woodson School. The school itself and the new unit, the new building just to the east of it, will be a federal low-income housing tax credit project for people who make 60% of AMI or less. But the other development that's currently under construction to the north is market rate. So those are the kinds of projects that we'd really like to see happen in the future, where you get more of a mixed income approach and you don't develop projects that are, just for a certain income classification. Those are the types of housing developments that have caused problems in the past. And there's some great examples all over the country of projects that have worked really well, that are mixed income. So,
if I might, just, first of all, I'm thankful for agenda items like this, because I think this is further evidence of how well this city works to be transparent. And I love the idea that we're developing a policy in advance of an election. I think it's why the public continues to literally and figuratively buy in to the asks of the city. Also, obviously, support the need for additional details that relates to a new program like this. I would just share with you from years ago my effort at Oklahoma County to do projects for housing in what I consider core inner city areas. There are multiple challenges that you well articulated and obviously are well aware of. I would just ask that as you develop the finer policy before the September election, that you provide enough agility to meet the needs of that long-standing and evolving problem in the distressed areas. It could be down payment assistance. It could be, essentially lowering the cost of construction for reluctant developers. You're still going to end up with conventional lending challenges associated with appraisals and comps and some of the rest, right? So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg. So I appreciate your approach in terms of maybe mixed income, mixed use issues. It's going to take everything, I think. At least that was from my experience around 16th and Martin Luther King, and there's some really good efforts out there, some church-led. So we would want to be inclusive enough with the organic effort that's underway already to make sure that the city can be partners, I think. And so, long way of saying thank you for the continued effort for the city to not only be transparent, but also to evolve purposes to meet new and emerging, or even in this instance, a long-standing problem. Just one question to something that you had mentioned. When you say high rent growth, is that the rate of rent, or is that the fact that population percentages are moving more towards being renters instead of homeowners?
the rate, the actual cost for rent is growing. I think there may be a slide, one of the ones that we hid a few slides in case some specific questions came up. It's not that one, but that one. So this is a slide that shows median gross rent growth from 2010 to 2015, and as you can see, Oklahoma City is the 7th from the top, behind Washington, D.C., El Paso, Portland, San Jose, and San Francisco. So
Obviously a mixed bag. Our success in the growth over time is creating those types of pain points. So appreciate it again.
And I think we have to recognize we started from a pretty low level, so the rate of growth is allowing us to catch up to some other markets. One of the things I want to say is that I think one of the really good things that's worked well with the Strategic Investment Program for the past 10 years is that it does have flexibility to respond to different situations, and that's going to be true of this affordable housing program as well. We will need some flexibility to address some of the things that Mr. Roth mentioned, as far as working with church groups or working with other organizations that are out there working in affordable housing as well. So the other thing I want to say is that on the job creation program, again, we do focus on key strategic industries, and we focus on industries that are designed to diversify our local economy. And I probably didn't emphasize that enough, but I think that as we move forward into the future, we're really going to want to work on how can we further diversify our economy, and how can we support maybe smaller companies that are more technology-based, and those things are included in your policy a little bit more explicitly than maybe they were in the past. So,
Just another thought, if I can, Mr. Chairman, and that is, if you have a healthy heart, you have a healthy body, and when you see a core that is struggled with in terms of housing, you end up with unsustainable business models with sprawl and surface transportation costs and infrastructure to a less dense mile further out in the city. So I guess I just offer the idea that if we're looking at distressed areas and city taxpayer-funded investment back into some areas, then maybe we look at other ways that the city can also bring relief to some of that equation. Maybe it's in planning, maybe it's in zoning, maybe it's in whatever else you can bring. Again, it's a myriad of issues, as you well know, and I would love to see some areas begin to see more life and more streets with people who are proud homeowners and not dilapidated structures. So thank you for your efforts.
We have a motion to move. A second? Yes, sir. Come forward.
Thank you. Don't move people out here for a reason to be here, sir. Thank you very much. Again, Michael C. Washington, Executive Director, Empower People Equal. Our motto is change your world and your world will change around you, and that's exactly why I'm standing here today. Now then, Ms. O'Connor, you stated that $10 million of this new SIP proposal, I'd like to have me a sip of brandy right now, by the way. Strategic Investment Programs, okay, nicely done. Worded nicely. However, effectively, I'm trying to question here what's really going on. 10 million of this 60 million proposal for affordable housing program will be geared toward, the SIP program, 10 million will be going toward affordable housing program. Now, and that 10 million will be given to developers who will come in and maybe develop a property, housing for, people that needs or whatever. Okay, now, number one question, who in fact will be the developers? Somebody already downtown? Or would it be somebody, your friend, no disrespect to you? Or would this be maybe her friend? That part, again, I thank you very much, brother, Mr. Pettis, and as Mr. Roth, y'all brought some very deep conversation in that regard out. This is something that's very needed and necessary that we all understand, because it seems to me that the blighted areas are being disregarded other than big businesses being recognized as coming in. You're not developing anything for the African-American community as far as I live in Ward 7. Why? Because the big buildings, are you ready for this? Everybody knows, I don't know if all y'all know, but Michael Washington knows that this is a hidden, evil, vicious intent, not by you necessarily, but someone is trying to take over the African-American community, because I see with all these big building structures going up, there's no kind of way that you're doing it for African-Americans. Come on now. So let's keep this real. Okay, again, I need a sip of brandy right now, but I'm not going to drink at this moment. I'm trying to tell you that this so-called program here, Strategic Investment Program, you said $45 million has already been given to certain companies. What companies are we talking about here? Okay, who determines what companies get that money? How many millions were going, or hundreds of thousands were going to each individual companies? Again, I guess I'll have to go through the open record act to get that. I'm just saying that you know I'm listening. Okay, and then we have here, you saying you want to create 11 million jobs from this SIP. Again, SIP. Let's sip into this now. Strategic Investment Program. Okay, then this gold, this bond thing for September. I like Mr. Pettis again. I'll give you an A for that. We need to know the transparency about what's going on prior to just being given a program and let it being handed to us. Because citizens themselves may have an objection to this proposal before it actually reaching the citizens for vote. Am I correct or not? Which I would definitely be. Why? As a representative of the people, and I even represent y'all, believe it or not, because transparency, truth, and honesty is uppermost in my life, in the world I live in. Now, you said, Ms. O'Connor, city initiative. This is a city initiative, right? Is that what you just said? That this was a city initiative? The program that you're talking about, this SIP and all this is? Yes. Okay, good. Now, does that mean that myself Can I possibly become a liaison to help out in this city initiative? You want to know why I asked that? You want to know why I asked that? Is there any kind of possibility that I can act as in the role of a liaison? Are we ready for this? Simply because I'm sure you're not just wanting your only ideas alone, and simply because I am a part of the community that you talk about affecting. Do we not need someone on the outside looking in to prepare and help the city initiative? I don't think that that's too harsh of force of an understanding or a belief or reason to ask that. I mean, is there a possibility that can happen? That I can act as a liaison to help the city out in helping the blighted communities, since that's what we're about. Finally, closing. This gold bond.
Mr. Washington, I've been informed by our city clerk over here that our time is up. Do you have one more point that you'd like to make?
Yes, I would.
If you do that briefly, then we'll hear it.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad Ms. Curtis, I'll remember that one. Now, you said it's going to create also a $682 million payroll. Is that correct with that SIP thing you're talking about? $682 million. Now, where's the $682 million going to come from? You just can't say it. It's got to have some foundation or some incubator to be given birth now. Again, some of us listen. I just want to let you know that I was listening, and I will be back later on to talk to you. I will be talking to Tiff a little bit more. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Okay, do we have a motion on it? We don't. We're still taking questions or comments?
Oh, yes, we do have a motion, I'm sorry.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further comments from the trustees? Seeing none, please cast your votes, and it is approved. Thank you all. Let's move on then. Next item is item K, the Alliance for Economic Development, third quarter report.
I can go very, very quickly. Mostly over the past quarter, we were focusing on land acquisition for the MAPS 3 Convention Center. I'm working towards the redevelopment agreement with Omni for the MAPS 3 Convention Center Hotel. We have several projects underway, working with the Chamber on job creation, many projects underway in Northeast Oklahoma City, some of them Page Woodson, single-family home development in JFK that I already have mentioned, and work on the Innovation District. The Brookings report was rolled out a couple weeks ago, and a lot of work up to that point trying to get that report completed and have some of our final meetings and wrap up the plans for how the Innovation District moves forward in the future. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions?
Move the item. Second.
Okay, we need a motion to receive the item.
Receive the item.
Okay, we have that and a second. Anybody with questions or comments? Please cast your votes, and is received. Next up is the Oklahoma City Economic Trust Interim Financial Report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is just the interim report through March 31st. Historically, you'll see these reports at the end of a fiscal year. Accounting is working on doing these and presenting these to you in a more timely manner. And beginning the next fiscal year, you'll get another one in December, and then we get one each year at the end of June. And this is just their way of accounting for the actions and just the fundamentals of the financial aspect of this trust. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Motion to receive. Need the one to receive. Motion to receive. If there's no questions, we have that. Second? Second. Any comments or questions? Please cast your, and it is received. Next up, we have the proposed fiscal year for 2017-2018 of the Economic Development Trust, its budget.
Yes, sir. I'll try to be quick here. Here is your proposed FY 17-18 Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust budget. It's approximately $161 million, and it's comprised of TIF funds at $132 million, the Strategic Investment Program at $24.8, and the General Economic Development at $4.5 million. It also includes the issuance of new debt for TIF District Number 2, and also includes funding for all of the contracts listed up there, and I won't go through each one of those in regard to your time. TIF number 2 and 3, we anticipate $25 million in expenditures this next year. We have a lot of projects that are under construction right now that will be completed in this next fiscal year, anywhere from the plow to the lift, all the way down to the underground. So, and we also anticipate one of the reasons why the budget increased so much this year from last is TIF District number 2, we're anticipating doing a rather large bond issue to take out a 2008 private placement that we did, in addition to taking out the line of credit that you just extended. And that's why you see a large payment of $43 million in debt service to refund the debt. And so we can go next. TIF number 3 anticipates about $10.4 million of actual increment revenues for the year. In addition to that, with a lot of our TIF district or TIF agreements, we require developers to pay a minimum tax, and when the county assessor does not assess them at what they anticipated, we send them bills, and then we anticipate $650,000 and above. So roughly between those two, it's $11 million in increment. Also anticipate $325,000 from the Skirvin Hotel, along with we anticipate getting the state match. And then we just have some small loan payments in FY18 because we anticipate, again, refunding them at that time, and with net bond proceeds of around $65 million. TIF District number 4 and 5, that's the Dell TIF District. It consists of the ad valorem, which is TIF 4, and TIF 5 is the actual sales tax that's generated from the jobs that are created at the Dell site. We anticipate about $2.5 million, or $2.3 million overall budget, with a payment of about $2 million in debt service, trying to pay down that line of credit that Dell extended previously. Anticipate about $1.13 million in ad valorem this next year, and about $150,000 from Dell jobs, along with getting the state match of another $100,000. TIF District number 8, as it winds down, we're at a total budget of $34 million. We'll finish up the remaining projects. We'll be getting bids, as Eric's mentioned to you previously, with package number 8. That's included in the budget, and along with completing the pedestrian plaza and the Oklahoma County Annex. As you are well aware, that this TIF district, Devon is paying a minimum tax, or they've guaranteed a $11.3 million payment on an annual basis. TIF District number 9, which is the Northeast Renaissance TIF, it's included in the budget. We anticipate an increment actually next month of around $51,000, and then we anticipate just some growth on that in the next year of about $52,000, and we do expect some expenses if the project gets up and going as the Northeast Shopping Center project. And we will the plan that we have there will follow along with the economic development agreement where we will actually rebate a portion of the sales tax that they generate back to the developer on that project. And that's also included in the budget. TIF District number 10 is the First National Center. That will include both sales tax and ad valorem tax. We budget around $500,000 in sales tax for construction, and then we're also about $200,000 in ad valorem increment that's based on actual increment as a result of just the purchase of the property. So, and we're working on agreements with them right now on that project. And then the Strategic Investment Program, we have a total budget of $24.8 million. The bulk of that, though, about $4.5 million will fund projects, or about $20 million will be rolled over into the next year. Then there's the general economic development portion of our budgets, around $4.5 million. This is where we receive money from the general fund, and then this body enters into multiple long-term agreements with various entities, and then you'll see it on your claim where we have agreements with the Myriad Gardens Foundation, the Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation, which is known as the Chamber, and then a new one this year will be the MAPS Park Foundation. There's about $700,000 in the budget for next year for that as they start working on staffing. And then the outlet shops of Oklahoma City, we also have the $550,000 in the budget for that. And then we have the Cabela's retail incentive that was also, that one is actually less than it was last year, as we budgeted a little higher than what it actually was. So we've adjusted that. That budget, from when you compare it last year to this year, current year to next year, it's a little bit less. So, go ahead. Summary, it's $161 million, funds-based services and contract. The plan is to bring this back to you at our June 27th meeting, and then we'll take it to the City Council for their receipt on July 5th. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion to receive the report then. Yes, sir.
What the gentleman just spoke about, thank you, sir. Kind of got me very, very interested here. Can we go back to the graphic about TIF District Number 9? Yeah, TIF District, now, yeah, that's it. Sales tax increment finance collections captured to be paid to developer. I'm kind of lost there. What does that mean? Are we saying that the sales tax from the tax increment collections that you bring in captured to be paid to this developer after you've already given him more than $2 million? That's what I'm totally lost. So to clarify so I can take it back to my people. You understand? And that's what I'm at. Expenses, Northeast Shopping Center project, sales tax increment finance collections captured to be paid to developer. Once again, you already gave this man a little over $2 million that your office approved, Ms. Kathy. Am I correct? Your office approved through tax increment finance and this.
Mr. Washington, in the interest of everybody's time, what I'd like to suggest is we have some technical people here who will be happy to answer that question as soon as we adjourn. Okay?
Okay.
So
I'm glad to know that we'll have somebody answer. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Okay, now, let me get out the way. Now, $132.3 million was given through the tax increment finance to the city, right?
I think that question will be answered.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Well, thank you. That's all I need right now to answer.
Great.
Now, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion to receive the proposed budget. We have a second? Please cast your votes. And it is so done. That concludes our agenda for today. Does staff have any comments? Oh, General Manager report. Thank you very much.
I don't know that there's anything noteworthy in the general manager's report for this meeting, but it is in your packet.
Yeah,
I'm glad
we need to receive it?
questions.
No.
It looked as regular business, so I would just move receipt of it.
Okay.
It's not on the
not
agenda
on
to
the
be
ag-
voted on. I mean, it's just a report that's included for your information.
Thank you, Jim.
I would unmove my out of order.
Consider it unmoved. All right, comments from staff? Comments from trustees? Comments from citizens?
I can hold you long. I do, sir, Mr. McAtee. I respect you greatly, and I hope that you're many word. I believe you are. I'd like someone to talk to me after this is over with regarding that situation about giving it tax increment finance collective portions back to Charles Shadid.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, back to the item of trustees' comments, if I could just offer a thought. Mr. Washington, I just wanted to share with you, I've never had a chance to meet you before, but I appreciate your passion. But I wanted to assure you that this is a unique body in the sense that all citizens are eligible to serve on it. In fact, well, I'm letting you know because you'd asked about being a liaison. In a sense, I want you to know this body that approves the expenditure of the public's money and the trust that it includes has a majority of citizens on it. It has 2 council people as well, and it's well staffed by city experts. But it has a majority of citizen members as trustees, and so I wanted to, I guess, share that thought with you as you depart today's meeting. Rest assured, we take our oath of office very seriously in the money that we are entrusted to manage on behalf of hundreds of thousands of people who are too busy to be here. But I just wanted you to have that assurance. And if you do have interest in serving, you can communicate that by letter probably to your council person or to your mayor, and you may be as lucky as I was to be given a chance to serve.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, I thank you for your indulgence and patience and understanding. I respect you greatly. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, we are adjourned.